Maybe betting on yourself isn't about believing that you're never going to fail. Maybe it's about trusting that you'll figure things out, even if it's something that you've never done before. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for being here. Let's dive into this week's conversation. I wanted to have this conversation with you guys this week because as I was going about my week, I came to an interesting realization. And that is that I think I started to realize that learning how to bet on yourself is a lot harder than people make it sound. Last week, I talked about realizing that my identity was tied to HR, but this week I uncovered another layer beneath that. I'm noticing that my default response is always focused on what I lack versus what I already bring. And I came to that realization because I had a job interview this week for an office manager position at a dental practice. And leading up to the interview and through the interview, I was completely nervous because the entire time I'm just thinking about how I don't have a clinical background. The interesting part is that while I was worried about whether I could do the job, the entire time the hiring manager wasn't worried at all. The only thing that she was concerned about was whether I would become bored because she felt that I was overqualified. So after the interview, I started to think about the fact that it was interesting that someone could have so much confidence in me while I was still questioning myself the entire time. Last week, I talked about not seeing myself out of HR, and this interview made me realize that maybe I've also stopped seeing what I'm capable of. And that was an interesting revelation for me. And so, of course, me being me, I wanted to dive into that a little more and figure out why that is. And when I did that, I noticed that there was a pattern emerging. First, I started to think about how over the years, I've had family and friends tell me that I'm creative. And my automatic response has always been to dismiss it because I never saw that in myself. Another pattern is that I realize that I often need outside validation before I allow myself to believe something about myself. So then I asked myself, when did I stop trusting my own abilities? And honestly, guys, I do not know the answer to that. And I don't know why I've stopped trusting my abilities or when that started. I don't know if it's because I'm afraid to fail or if I'm afraid of being judged or critiqued, but I definitely noticed this pattern as I started to dive a little deeper into this realization that I had. So then I said, okay, so maybe it is because I'm afraid to fail. Maybe that's why I've stopped trusting my abilities. How can I reframe it so that it makes a little bit more sense to me? And so, going off of the possible failure example, I started to think that maybe betting on yourself isn't about believing that you're never going to fail. Maybe it's about trusting that you'll figure things out, even if it's something that you've never done before. I want to welcome my new subscribers. Welcome to the Live Collective. I am so happy that you are here. Thank you for being here. And to all of you who are currently subscribed, thank you so much for your support. It means more to me than you will ever know. Let's continue to grow the community. Please like, comment, share any of my conversations. If you know anyone that can benefit from these conversations, please feel free to share them. And also be sure to turn on your notification button so you receive notifications each week when I upload a new conversation. Another realization that I had is that I'm beginning to see that transferable skills are just as valuable as technical skills, but for some reason, I haven't been giving myself credit for them. And I don't know why that is. So, collective, I'm now posing this question to you. Have you ever talked yourself out of an opportunity because you were focused on what you didn't know versus what you already knew? Comment below. I'm really interested to see what you all have to say because sometimes I feel as though I'm alone in these thoughts or that I'm crazy in some of the things that I think. And also, a twofer. I'm going to follow up that question for you all. For if you're learning how to bet on yourself, can you tell me in the comments below how you're navigating that or how you're approaching it. If something comes up that you are fearful of trying, fearful of doing, or uncomfortable with, how do you or how are you navigating that and putting that aside and telling yourself that you still need to move forward despite those thoughts and those feelings that you're having? I'm interested in learning your tips and your tools and any resources that you may use that helps maybe ground you a little bit as you're approaching these experiences or these thoughts or events. And also, I want to share some of the tools that I use that help keep me grounded and intentional and help me to gain clarity. Journaling is a big part of that. I am able to write down all of my thoughts and see it on a piece of paper, and it helps me break things down into smaller pieces, and I'm able to gain clarity that way. And I'm also very intentional about some of the tools that I use, from the pens to the environment that I create around myself. So, if you're also someone that is looking for some tools or some ways to ground yourself as you're navigating any season of, learning to trust yourself a little more, learning to bet on yourself a little more, I'm going to link some of the tools that I use below in the description box. I think the biggest realization for me about this topic as I've gone through this week has been that maybe the biggest obstacle isn't that other people don't believe in us. Maybe it's that we haven't fully believed in ourselves. That's something that I'm learning. So, what I'm practicing now is I'm learning to bet on myself a little bit more every day, even if it's something that makes me uncomfortable. I'm focusing on taking small steps, and I'm learning to move past the fear, as uncomfortable as it is, instead of just letting it stop me from moving at all. So, if I had to sum up this topic of betting on how I'm learning to bet on myself, I guess I would say that maybe this season isn't asking me to become someone new. Maybe it's asking me to finally believe in the person that I've been all along. And before I go, I want to leave you all with my gentle reminder, and it's that no matter what you're going through, please remember that up to this point, your success rate is 100% because you're still here and you're still standing. So please keep going. Please keep moving. Everything is going to be okay. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.